Prodeus is the newest entry in the current trend of classic-style first-person shooters, drawing from the foundation built by games such as Doom, Duke, and Quake. Developed by Bounding Box Software, which is comprised of former members of Raven and Starbreeze, and published by Humble Games, the goal of Prodeus is to reimagine the FPS of old using modern rendering techniques. And now that the game has finally come to early access, we get to see if the developers succeeded. What's up everybody, I'm Kirk, and today I'm going to be taking a look at the first early access build of Prodeus, to see if this is a meal worth biting into or if it needs a few more minutes in the oven. But before all that, please be sure to subscribe to this channel for all things boom and shoot. Alright, let's begin. Prodeus is a fine-looking game. Built using Unity, Prodeus effectively straddles that line of retro charm and modern beauty. Sprite-based monsters, pixelated textures, and stark, angular geometry that often reminded me of the look of build engine games, all complemented by the graphical tricks of a modern engine. It's a game that feels nostalgic and fresh all at once. Clearly, the biggest influence on the look of the game is the Doom series, but Prodeus does a good job setting itself apart with the appropriate amount of visual tribute. Levels love to contrast dark gray interiors and exteriors with bright blues, greens, and an overwhelming amount of red and orange. This serves a gameplay purpose to help players spot enemies and important locations, but it does give the game an unnerving sci-fi feel. Enemies show some wonderfully gory damage animations, with blood splatter that I can only compare to an exploding ketchup bottle or the ending of Peter Jackson's Dead Alive. Brain dead to my foreign brothers. Arenas post-firefight are saturated with blood and whatever goo happens to be gushing out of these guys, and it looks amazing and ridiculous. The game is also very polished, although I did experience some minor bugs, but nothing to get up in arms about. Prodeus also features several graphical options to make the game look as new school or old school as you'd like. For example, the awesome enemy sprites can be switched out for full 3D models, which look great, although it would have been nice to see this applied to your weapons and item pickups as well. The weapon sprites do look amazing though, with dynamic lighting and sprinkles of blood as you battle. You can also make the game look like it's running at lower resolutions common of the 90s, and even apply a scanline or CRT filter. The end result looks fantastic, in that fantastic retro way. The music was composed by Andrew Hulshult and James Paddock. Hulshult has composed so many of these games, I'm honestly running out of ways to compliment him. He truly is the sound of the retro shooter. And Paddock is well known for composing music for Doom WADs, in particular the MIDI soundtrack for Sigil, which I thought was excellent. The early levels in the game feature the hard, intense, heavy metal guitar riffs expected for a game of this type, but the later tracks in the game go towards more cinematic and electronic fare, which I really dug. Overall, another strong effort from both these talented composers. The current build of Prodeus features 15 levels and 3 speedrun target shoots that are a lot of fun and actually pretty addictive. Players access levels through this nifty overworld map, likely a callback to the post-mission screen from the original Doom, but the Super Mario vibes are hard to deny. It's a good chunk of content made better by the fact that these levels range from solid to excellent. Levels are large, winding, and maze-like, giving the players some choice in how they want to tackle them, and despite the game including a mini-map, there weren't too many times I felt I needed it, as I rarely got lost. The design is very good about organically guiding you to where you need to go, but it's still handy for weapon pickups and secrets. The best levels in the game are ones that literally revolve around a central concept, like destroying the shields on a containment unit by fighting through different sectors of the map, or this one tough level where you have to move around a large sniper tower, taking cover from fire while also fighting hordes of monsters on cliff sides and in tunnels. It's great stuff, and while I didn't find Prodeus to be quite as challenging as other retro shooters I've played recently, the game does a good job of steadily ramping up the challenge. The levels will certainly satisfy shooter diehards, but they may also serve to entice the more creative gamers out there. A big feature of Prodeus is its in-game level editor, allowing players to create their own maps and campaigns and upload them for all to enjoy. It's easy to write something like this off, but Prodeus's map editor is quite the powerful tool. Now, I have very little experience with this sort of thing, so I can't really comment too much on how good this editor is, but I can comment on the results. Already there are some user levels available that are phenomenal looking, and even the ones that don't look quite as polished still offer some unique fun. There's even custom game types. I'd talk about some of my favorites, but I think I'm gonna save that for a future video. I'm excited to see what happens with this feature. I expect the Prodeus community to do some wild things with it, and who knows, maybe some future FPS devs will get their start here. When it comes to gameplay, Prodeus makes its forebears proud. It's fast, it's precise, it's brutal. You're not a soldier in this game, you're a sledgehammer and a samurai sword all at once. It's no-nonsense, brutal shooter gameplay that'll put a smile on any old-school FPS fan's face. Enemies in Prodeus stick closely to the Doom template. We got our zombie soldiers, equipped with shotguns and snipers, along with these nasty hazmat suit guys that get toxic goo all over the place, chain gunners who are still a nightmare, and lungers, which are like a combination of the Pinky Demon and the Fiend from Quake. There's bloaters, which are pretty much Orange Crush cacodemons, but they shoot acid everywhere, along with their variant, the Void Reaper, which is essentially the Pain Elemental, lost souls and all. And these fireball-throwing beasts are basically imps. They're called fiends, but come on, these are imps. Not all the monsters are variations of Doom's roster. The game does feature some unique enemies, like the Rune Extractors, stronger blue variants of the normal enemies that take quite a bit to kill, controlled by Harbingers, who are these tough as nails Protoss looking dudes. There's also Slayers, spider-like enemies that are straight up nightmare fuel, able to buff monsters around them and they can annihilate you with their projectiles. And then there's Skullfish, little crab-like enemies who are a nuisance, just like real-life crabs. The enemies are a lot of fun to fight, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with the game basing its enemy roster so closely to Doom's. I just hope future updates bring more original enemy types. Prodeus currently features 10 weapons, and while most of them will feel pretty familiar to you, every single one of them is excellent and an absolute joy to use. I mean, the least enjoyable weapon were the fists, and even then they were still pretty entertaining. Weapons are categorized according to the ammo pools they draw from: bullets, shells, rockets, plasma, and chaos. And each weapon has an alternate fire. For bullets, you naturally start out with the pistol, which is punchy and reliable, with an alternate fire that aims down the sights and fires a 3-bullet burst. Sadly, as is usually the case, the pistol will likely be ignored as your arsenal fills out, but a solid starting weapon nonetheless. Next, you have the Shredders, dual machine guns. Left click shoots the left one, right click shoots the right. Both clicks shoot them at once. The trick here is to alternate between left and right, as firing them both at the same time has a lousy accuracy, but is handy for close quarters. The chain gun is the splatter machine you expect it to be. The alt fire spins the barrel so you don't have to waste time revving it up. Nothing new here, but solid all around, just like the rocket launcher. Blows stuff up good and fast, with a brief reload in between. Its alternate fire lets you detonate the rocket mid-flight. The grenade launcher, though, is one of my unexpected favorites. The arc on this thing is just perfect, and it's great against the chain gunners. Its alt fire is a sticky nade, that's actually what they call it, which sticks to enemies and explodes after a few seconds, which is great for crowd control. Watch the splash damage though, it's wider than you think. The plasma gun is pretty much the plasma gun from Doom, but its alt fire is a homing dart that draws in your plasma, allowing you to shoot around cover and corners. The arc rail is another one of my favorites. Its primary fire shoots orange lightning, which chains between enemies, which is awesome, but its alt fire is a charged up sniper shot, which you would be wise to take advantage of. Okay, what's left? Ah yes, how could I forget? The shotguns in this game are so good, and I love me a good shotgun. See, this guy knows. The base shotgun is an absolute wrecking ball with some pretty decent range. Holding down fire shoots a steady stream of shots, while clicking rapidly makes the gun shoot faster. It's a small thing, but a thing I appreciate a lot, as it gives me a better feel for the weapon. Its alt fire is a charged up shot that will light enemies on fire, and it only uses one shell, which is nice. Finally, the super shotgun is just nuts. It's as if you took 2 super shotguns from Doom 2016 and glued them together. It shoots 4 powerful shots, but the alt fire shoots all 4 shots at the same time, behaving pretty similar to the super shotgun from Doom. It's good they give you this late in the game, because this sucker is borderline unfair, able to decimate many of the higher level monsters. Although I shudder to think what evil will be introduced in future updates that can stand up to this thing. The best part of all of this is that there are still more weapons to come. The devs could have easily settled on the current loadout, and I'm sure no one would have complained, but the fact that there are more on the way is very exciting. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about a couple mechanics in Prodeus that gave me some pause. The first is that Prodeus has reloading. This is unusual for classic style shooters, as the goal is to keep the player always moving and in a flow state of killing, and reloading is seen by many as an unnecessary disruption. There were plenty of times I'd be running up to attack in one of Prodeus's many arena battles only to be interrupted by a reload animation, which was frustrating. Here's the thing though, the reload animation for all the weapons is very quick, and when I forced myself to be more conscious of how much ammo I had in a clip, I was able to adapt and minimize the frustration, and it did add a little extra strategy to the gameplay. That being said though, I don't know if this really adds all that much to the game, and it looks like the devs are a little split on it too. I guess we'll just have to see how the community reacts to it. Next is the checkpoint system. Throughout each mission are checkpoint crystals, which the player will return to when they die. Pretty run-of-the-mill. What's interesting though is that when you die and return to these, the enemies after that point don't respawn. You lose no progress, you can go right to that battle and pick up where you left off. It's a lot like the Vita chambers from BioShock. This kind of takes a bite out of the difficulty. I mean, no matter how much a level might be kicking your ass, you can just keep respawning and inching your way through. However, what I realized is that beating a level with no deaths earns the player a reward that counts towards their completion percentage. So for players looking to 100% Prodeus, any death is going to be an automatic restart of the level, and in this instance, dying holds a lot more weight. Oh, that was dumb. But I wonder if it might be a good idea in the future to give players some options here, like choosing if deaths lose you progress or not. It's a small thing, but I think some players would really appreciate that. Prodeus is another excellent entry in a legendary year of first-person shooters. Even in early access, it's the complete package. Solid mechanics, solid level design, and retro graphics with a modern edge. On top of that, community features that show a lot of promise. Prodeus is currently available in early access through Steam and GOG at $24.99. If you want to wait for the full release, that is totally fair, but for those that just can't wait, you won't be disappointed. I will be covering Prodeus as major updates drop, so be sure to check in with this channel. Please be sure to let me know in the comments your thoughts on Prodeus, if you're playing it, planning on playing it, and stuff you'd like to see included in the future. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to subscribe, like, and share with your friends. It is a massive help for this channel. In the mood for more retro shooters, maybe check out my review of Project Warlock for the Switch. I post videos weekly, so be sure to ring that bell so you're the first to see them. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.